Greetings, Earthlings! Welcome back to 7th Street, and welcome back to the third Top 5 80s episode. I need to come up with a better title for this. As you guys may know, I really didn't plan on doing this, at all. I just wanted to do one Top 5 video for 1980, and everybody told me to keep this going. So, yeah, like I said, I need to come up with a better title, and without further ado, let's just get into this. Poltergeist.
They're here.
You know, Poltergeist is one of those movies that I sometimes think horror fans take for granted. It's so mainstream and so ingrained into our popular culture that I think we write it off at times and forget just how good it is, because it really is that good. It's not a movie that comes right to mind when thinking of films to revisit, but whenever I do, I'm reminded why it's still so popular all these years later. It's a big budget MGM Steven Spielberg no holds barred knock down drag out journey into a world of the supernatural. Poltergeist explains the side effects of a haunted house and its effect on a normal suburban family, which is not necessarily a new concept when it comes to the genre, but the presentation is like nothing else that had come before it. The story centers around the Freeling family, your typical suburbanites. Steve Freeling is a successful real estate agent who moves into a nice house with his loving family. At first, the Freelings seem to have the American dream, that is, until their lives are turned upside down when they realize that their house is haunted and the poltergeists kidnap their youngest member of the family. Steve and his wife Diane then must do everything in their power to get little Carol Ann back. With the help of Dr. Lesh, played by an Oscar-worthy actress, Beatrice Straight, and her assistants, horrors and traumas ensue, and James Karen is in it.
A terrible presence is in there with her. So much rage, so much betrayal. I've never sensed anything like it.
You know, this movie was technically directed by Tobe Hooper, who was hot out of the gate after his 70s slasher classic, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But, I don't know, I never think of this as a Tobe Hooper film. It doesn't feel like a Tobe Hooper film. It feels like a Steven Spielberg film, and I'm guessing that that truly is the case. You know, sometimes I wonder if Spielberg took the role of producer and gave the role of director to someone else just to protect himself if the movie bombed or was too gory for his family-friendly brand.
This is a PG-rated film. I think for young kids it's too strong. If I had seen this movie when I was 7, I would have been afraid to go to bed until I was 12.
Poltergeist is a blast. Literally everyone who sees it loves it. Poltergeist is sort of a family film. It's a great starter flick if you're trying to introduce a kid to the horror genre. Check it out if you haven't. Number 4, The Thing.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this one being so far back. If I would have made this list as a kid, it probably would have taken the number 2 spot, but over time, my tastes in movies have changed. Make no mistake, this entry into the John Carpenter Apocalypse trilogy is magnificent. Never have I seen such a bleak and lonely feeling action movie. The Thing has an innate ability to cause anxiety and paranoia, no doubt due to the fact that it was made during the Cold War, a time where there were very real fears of communist infiltrators living amongst us.
I know I'm human, so some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself, it wants to hide inside an imitation.
The movie is a remake of the Howard Hawks sci-fi classic The Thing from Another World. It's about an American research team in the Antarctic that through a series of events stumbles upon a UFO frozen in the ice and a Norwegian outpost that had been attacked by some sort of infectious, shape-shifting creature. After bringing a husky back from said outpost, the creature now runs amok, killing its way through the cast of characters while staying hidden behind a human host. The Thing is expertly directed, perhaps Carpenter's best. It's moody and nihilistic and brandishes some of the absolute best practical creature effects in film history. Case in point, the defibrillation scene, which begins with a chest cavity turning into an alien monster mouth that tears a guy's arms off and ends with a disembodied head sprouting spider legs. The cast is also great in this one. Obviously, the most recognizable is the great Kurt Russell, but you also have a genre mainstay in Keith David and the late great Wilford Brimley. This is a movie which has garnered some attention recently with a growing fan theory that Kurt Russell's character McGrady is the Thing. And you know what? Throw me in that camp too. Hashtag McGrady is the Thing.
Well, what do we do?
Why don't we just wait here for a little while? See what happens.
Number 3, Tenebre.
Filthy, slimy
Okay, I'm actually a little embarrassed here. I did not include Tenebre in my top 5 favorite giallo movies video, and I don't really know why. I think I just kind of forgot, or I was purposely trying to be a dick. I don't know, one of those two. But Tenebre certainly deserves the right to be on that list. In my opinion, it's the best Dario Argento film in a technical sense, and it's my second personal favorite of his films, only trailing Phenomena.
When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
Tenebre marked Dario Argento's return to the sleazy Italian thrillers known as giallos. Argento was definitely no stranger to the giallo genre. In fact, he made his name in the industry with such films as Profondo Rosso and Cat o' Nine Tails. But in the mid-70s, the director veered away from these crime thrillers, instead focusing more on supernatural thrillers like 1977's Suspiria. But by the early 80s, the giallo genre saw a bit of a resurgence, and Argento was ready to show the world that he was still the critical darling when it came to these types of black-gloved slasher movies. Tenebre follows Peter Neal, a crime novel writer who arrives in Rome to celebrate the release of his new book, Tenebre, only to find that somebody is using his work as inspiration for committing gruesome and bloody murders all across the city. As the death toll mounts, the police panic in their search for the killer, and soon turn their sights on the writer himself. The cinematography is phenomenal in this movie, as is the case in most Argento films. One of the most impressive is this one-take tracking shot that moves around the exterior of a house, peering into the different windows, showing what all the occupants are doing within the different rooms of the home. The lighting is also worth noting in this movie. I really like how every location is blasted with light. It's almost overlit, giving the movie a sterile, clean feeling. How could you not talk about an argento giallo without mentioning the gore? Tenebre features some of the bloodiest and most innovative kill scenes in his entire filmography. It is truly a top-notch thriller.
I've read all your books, Mr. Neal. The book deals with a murder committed with an old-fashioned open razor, right? This girl, too, was killed with a razor, and your book's pages stuffed into her mouth.
Can I ask you something? If someone is killed with a Smith & Wesson revolver, do you go and interview the president of Smith & Wesson?
Number 2, The New York Ripper. Arguably a top 5 fulci film, and still my personal favorite giallo movie ever, The New York Ripper is a movie that's not for everyone.
He used a blade. He stuck it up her joy trail and slit her wide open. He could have done a slightly better job if he'd had more time. But overall, it was good, efficient butchery.
The movie is extremely violent, mean-spirited, and at times horribly misogynistic, but that's kind of what I like so much about it. It's an angry film. It is to cinema what the Sex Pistols were to rock and roll. It's trying to be ugly and unpleasant, and it seems to be on a mission to turn off as many people as possible. Fulci pulls no punches here, and his gritty, troublesome take on New York back alley sleaze is a morbid work of art. The New York Ripper blends the giallo genre and the American slasher genre perfectly in this story of a duck-voiced killer stalking and butchering young women who dare to venture the city streets alone. The NYPD is powerless to stop him as the killer grows increasingly confident with every gruesome murder and then begins to taunt them with threatening phone calls.
What do you want?
To dedicate a killing to you. Gonna sacrifice a woman just for you. Like the idea?
You know, I'm just noticing that in these last 3 videos that we've covered, Fulci keeps getting the number 2 spot, but hasn't taken home the first place prize. He's my second favorite director, but for the 3rd time in a row, he finds himself playing second fiddle. This may be indicative to what happened in his career. Unfortunately, his best horror films came out around the time of some other real genre greats. I don't want to talk too much about this movie because I do plan on doing a Reference This Film episode on it very soon. All I will say about this one is, if you like perverted fetishes, neon lights, razor blades slicing eyeballs open, and killers that do a bad Donald Duck impression, The New York Ripper is for you. It's crazy, it's upsetting, it's amazing. Check it out.
You're like all the rest of them, young and beautiful and healthy. While I rock to death in bed in a lousy, stinking hospital.
Number 1, Creepshow. George A. Romero and Stephen King. It's a match made in hell. Yeah, Creepshow, man. No way Creepshow wasn't going to take the number 1 spot. This was one of my all-time favorite movies as a kid. I can specifically remember watching it for the first time on a VHS tape in my grandma's family room with my cousin Cameron. In fact, I think that was the first time that him and I were allowed to be home alone. We were probably like 9 or 10, and after watching that movie, I was so freaked out. I kept imagining seeing a skeleton floating by the window. Anyway, George A. Romero is my favorite director. Every movie of his from the 70s and 80s are pure gold. You can tell that the man just enjoys making fun movies for the audience. And Creepshow is an extremely fun attempt at bringing the 1950s EC horror comics to the big screen. One of the best things about Creepshow is Romero's creative and vivid direction that captures the bright color schemes and comic book framing to a T. If you don't know already, Creepshow is an anthology movie. 5 tales of terror are presented here. The first deals with a rich old man returning from the grave on Father's Day to take revenge on his murdering daughter. The second story is about a hillbilly, played by Stephen King, discovering a meteorite that turns everything it comes into contact with into some sort of space plant. The third is about a vengeful husband burying his wife and her lover up to their necks on the beach. The fourth story, and my personal favorite, is about a decades-old creature that lives in a crate under the steps of a college. And the final story is about an ultra-rich racist businessman who deals with a little bit of a cockroach problem. Like I said at the top of this, Creepshow has been one of my very favorite movies for a very long time. It is, in my opinion, the best horror anthology movie out there. It's got a lot of style, a lot of gore, fun monsters, and some pretty recognizable actors in it. Leslie Nielsen, Ted Danson, and Ed Harris, just to name a few. If you're thinking about getting a copy of this movie, I would highly recommend the Blu-ray box set from Scream Factory. It's loaded with tons of fun special features, and the transfer looks great.
Teacher, to throw away my comic books. Ready for another shot, Dad?
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. That is my top 5 favorite horror films from the year 1982. I want to give a big shout out to Harold Webb, who's just like the best patron ever. And I just want to let you guys know that we do have a Patreon page, we have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram. Find 7th Street Productions. We're out there. Check out some of our original content, some of our short films, and some of our feature films that we've made. They're available on our YouTube page. And also, go ahead and check out my latest feature horror film that I wrote and directed called Jesus, I Was Evil. You can now stream it for free on Tubi TV. So until next time, guys.
You see that crap? All that horror crap? Things coming out of crates and eating people, dead people coming back to life, people turning into weeds, for Christ's sake.
Well, yes, I did, but I...
Well, you want them reading that stuff?
Well, no, but...
All right, then. I took care of it. That's why God made fathers, babe. That's why God made fathers.